Well, hello everyone. Is it good afternoon or not? Yeah, I guess good afternoon. I hope everyone has already eat lunch. Is it good? Like, is the pho good? Not really. Or of course, it's always good. Like beef noodles is always good. My name is Dea Rezkitha, and I am from Indonesia. Today I'm going to present about the money race between CBDC and the Bitcoin Lightning in Southeast Asia. But before I start talking about CBDC and about Southeast Asia, first of all, I would like to recognize, Vietnam because this is like one of, for me, it's one of the um, my journey towards Bitcoin is actually in this region, not because I'm from Indonesia per se, but the first time I got to know about Bitcoin was in 2013. At that time, I was traveling and backpacking in Southeast Asia. I was about to go to Vietnam, but then one of the reason I cannot go to Vietnam. Instead of going to Laos, and when I was in Laos, in this really random bar in Phang Vieng, suddenly there is a sign called Bitcoin accepted here, and this is back in 2013. So I asked the waiters, what is Bitcoin? And the guy said, oh, it's internet money. And I just thought, wow, now we have internet money, that's really cool. Like I did not know that. But that's like the point where I first started knowing about Bitcoin. And I think uh, if we want to talk about Bitcoin, we cannot forget about Southeast Asia because if you see the charts, the reports, everyone always say that Southeast Asia has a huge Bitcoin adoption, but it's quite unique. It's not like in Africa or in South America where most of the adoption happened because the countries having problems with their currency. Southeast Asia is something different. And I think we talked a little bit about this during the panel just before the last two sessions. But today, I'm just gonna to talk the significance between what is coming in Southeast Asia, which is the CBDC, the central bank digital currency, and also what is the opportunity for the Bitcoin Lightning adoption. So in today's presentation, I'm going to talk about three things. So first is about context. So for those of you who are not from Southeast Asia or not living in Southeast Asia, so I would like to give a little bit more context about the region itself. And then second, I'm going to talk about the progress right now with CBDC. What is why they want to have CBDC in this region? What sort of the motivation behind it? What's you going to expect as a Southeast Asian or living in this region? And also, what is their challenges at the moment with CBDC? And also, the last thing is about what is the alternative? So if CBDC is hugely adopted in Southeast Asia, so then what is the next for Bitcoin? And will Bitcoin be adopted fully in Southeast Asia despite with this current CBDC being adopted in Southeast Asia? So yeah, so my name is Dea Rezkitha. You can follow me on my Twitter, Dea Rezkitha. So first of all, I would like to talk about Southeast Asia in general. So here is Southeast Asia. So we are just between China and also Australia. When it comes to the region itself, like it is larger than United States. It's spanned 4.5 million square kilometers. It's home of 11 countries. So there's Vietnam, Indonesia, there's Malaysia, Thailand, Singapore, there is Philippines, there's Laos, Cambodia, there's Brunei Darussalam, there's also, did I miss someone? Oh yeah, and also just the recent one, East Timor, which is part of the area. And from 10 of these 11 countries, they are part of a regional cooperation called ASEAN. So this is mostly like a cooperation that is basically for economy purpose. And yeah, like it is actually home for 669 million people. So if you combine everyone in Southeast Asia, that's practically the third largest population in the world after India and China. It's very diverse. Yeah, in this region, there's mostly like 1,300 language being spoken in this area. But also, what is unique in Southeast Asia, it's divided into, we can say, like high-income countries and also low-income countries. Despite whether they are part of like high or low income, when it comes to like currency, 4 out of 10 countries, as we speak right now, it's considered to have a weak currency, which is, you know, Laotian kip, the Cambodian riel, the Indonesian rupiah, the Vietnamese dong. This is considered to be like weak currency with like high denomination and have experienced inflation in the past. So yeah, it is very diverse, and diverse in terms of cultural, diverse also in terms of economic and political situation in there. So, sorry. Yeah. Also, because of the way Southeast Asia is laid out, we are technically like some of the big countries like Indonesia and Philippines, we are archipelagic countries. So it makes sense why a lot of these countries are unbanked, because to have bank account, that means that you need to have an infrastructure, means you need to create bank branches, you need to hire people, you need to figure out how to like distribute money, right? So if you can see, this is the chart of like how many percentage of unbanked in Southeast Asia. Vietnam is also around 70%, Philippines, then Indonesia, because of the archipelago country. But also a part of infrastructure, but also from the way the topography of the countries. There's also you know, high fees. You know, like if you are sending money using a bank transfer, then there will be fee. People are preferred to have cash more than bank transfer. But despite a lot of people are unbanked, there's huge penetration for, you know, internet connection in this region. I guess Brunei, Singapore, Malaysia is considered to be like a high-income countries. They have more internet connection, but some other countries also picking up right now. And now, if you think about, there are a lot of people are unbanked, but the internet connection is huge. Of course, there's an opportunity here, and the government thinks that having mobile or digital payment, it can be a way, because I think a lot of people, when there is an internet connection, there's also a lot of mobile user, smartphone user in this area. So that's like basically the opportunity that they see. So yeah, I think in the past decades right now, there is a big push towards adopting cashless payment for these countries. This is a statistic from Statista, you know, based on a survey. They do a survey about how many people are currently using cashless mode of payment. In general, Southeast Asia is like around 93% already adopting cashless payment system, but they cannot still get away from cash, because cash is still the source of the economy right now. Because most of the countries in Southeast Asia, they are working in informal jobs, so cash is the way to go about it. So yeah, you can see Singapore's like having 97%, even Malaysia and Indonesia, it's like above 93%. Cambodia is like a bit lower in the lower spectrum there. But in general, the people in the countries already adopting cashless payment. Okay, so this region also is very unique because they have experienced high or even hyperinflation in the past. You can see that Indonesia had like 1,000% of inflation in 1960s. Even Laos in 1999. Myanmar 57% in 2002. Most of this inflation happened either one because of political situation. Probably the government, well, I mean, at least like in Indonesia, the government prints a lot of money and then that create the inflation. Also, because of the political instability that contribute to the inflation as well. And then there's also external factor, such as the Asia crisis, such as the oil embargo in 1974, that giving an effect on the economy, and also the current subprime mortgage crisis, because most of these countries they are tied to what's happening around the globe, what is the current economic situation. So then when there is a crisis happening, then these countries also get affected. And when they got affected, people saving basically, you cannot even access your saving. And most people, when the inflation happened, they opt out for hard currency or even gold. So I think I speak for like Southeast Asian, at least in my family back in the day, because my grandma and my father, my mother experienced this hyperinflation in 1960. So everyone always tried their best to save in gold. So even up until now, they will tell their kids, their grandkids, like, hey, if you have money, save it in gold, because they already experienced what happened in the past with the inflation. And it's gonna stick in their mind, because after that, after 1960, there's also 1998, when there's Asia crisis. Everyone who have dollar, everyone who have gold, they are okay, but everyone who save in rupiah, they got affected with the crisis. So in general, the country already experienced inflation, and they will opt out for hard currency for sure. And again, when it comes to history, this area already also experienced several human rights violations or even massacres. We can see like in Cambodia, in Indonesia, in Myanmar, in Thailand even. I will not talk about details, but it is part of the history, and people know what's happening, like how the government can do this thing to their people. So this is why also Southeast Asian people are very, careful when it comes to talk about or speak out about politics or their opinion, because this thing can happen. So also in general, just to give a general idea, I know sometimes there's a joke that we cannot differentiate one another. Southeast Asian people look almost the same. But this is a generalization about the characteristic of the Southeast Asian people. I think one is that they like to keep it low-key, again, back because of the history and also how the people are very communal. They are very community-based. So they don't like to stand out, and that's why they try their best to probably even hide let's say if they're rich, they won't show off like how much do they have, because if they show off, then someone who get jealous can bring them down. So this is why it can be tricky with the community in Southeast Asia, especially when it comes to like talking about Bitcoin, because they don't want people to know if they have Bitcoin. A lot of there's a lot of people who are actually own many Bitcoin, but they don't want to talk about it because of this aspect, and probably also for avoiding tax, I don't know. But yeah, so they're also very pragmatic, like I mentioned earlier, that for them is that if they can use it, if they can have something that they can use practically, they will go for it. But people in Southeast Asia, it's not very much move based on ideology. They will go because of pragmatism. And also people are less likely to challenge authority, again, because of the history. So we can kind of see about what's, like how is the dynamic of the people in Southeast Asia, but because of the history and also because of their pragmatism, this is why there is a lot of people are actually using, or adopting crypto or adopting Bitcoin. So we already talked about the kind of a general idea about what is Southeast Asia, their history, the diversity. So now let's talk about what's going on in the region when it comes to about adopting CBDC, the central bank digital currency. So why Southeast Asia countries now pursuing CBDC? Like, why is it necessary for them to have CBDC based on the view of the government? Well, the first one is because there is a huge influence of China in this region, and also the declining power of United States. And later I will explain a bit more about that. And then the second, there is a pressure from big corporation and also institution. And then the third, there's already a growing popularity of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency in here. So as you can see that the first one, for the first point, there is an increasing influence of China, especially Chinese investment in Southeast Asia region. We can see this is how much the debt that was distributed by China to Southeast Asia country, and from the right side is actually the how much the value of the loan, and then the right side is the flow, the capital flow coming into Southeast Asia. And this is just an old data. It's from 2017. I actually have a note in here because I cannot remember by heart. But yeah, so for example, at the moment, Laos has like $12.2 billion debt to China, and it's even more than their national output. So they are hugely indebted to China. Indonesia as well. Right now, we have around, in here it says 9.6 billion collateralized loans, but we also have around $17.28 billion hidden debt that is off from the government book. So there are a lot of like this hidden debt also in different countries. In Cambodia itself, like 40% of their national debt, it goes to China. And in Philippines, there is, I think the Philippines, China gave $26 billion for Duterte during the build infrastructure project. Only I think Malaysia who refused the Belt and Road Initiative loan. So that's very interesting. So in the end is that if you know about what happened with China debt, they are using what is called the debt trap diplomacy. So they give huge loan with high interest, and if the country cannot repay it back, they will get the infrastructure. There will be like some kind of deals between the countries, and then China, if the country cannot pay them back, China can get some of the important infrastructure. And this is very interesting because Southeast Asia region is very important for China, especially because there is a lot of conflict or potential conflict that can happen in this region because they are bordered with the South China Sea, and as you know, South China Sea has a lot of like commodities and also natural resource that they can take in this region. Either it is oil or even maritime fish, marine stuff. So this is very important. And why the debt to China can contribute to CBDC? Because some countries, like in Africa, China asked them to pay the loan back in digital yuan. So then, meaning that all these countries have to adopt the CBDC, the Chinese CBDC, to repay them back. And the reason why they want the country to pay in CBDC because China wants to, what is it called? Like they want to curtail the let's say sanction or potential sanction from the SWIFT payment system. SWIFT is our current monetary payment network that is somehow ruled by the United States. So if there is sanction, then SWIFT will follow. So yeah, so that's one of the reason. And then, of course, like before I also said there is a push in the big institution and also corporation. So for institution-wise, Southeast Asia, ASEAN network really want to strengthen themselves and then make it possible for us to do cross-border payment because everyone live really close to each other, almost like in European Union. But our currency is so different in one another, so that's also one of another push. And then also an increasing ownership of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. As you can see, this is the data from Bitcoin magazine. So like most of, like on the worldwide average, a lot of our Southeast Asia countries is actually more than world average, like in Thailand, Philippines, Indonesia, Singapore, and also Vietnam. They have a lot of people are at least own or known about Bitcoin. And this is actually started in 2020 after COVID because people cannot work and the only way or things that they can think about is to invest their money in crypto or in the end in Bitcoin. And Southeast Asia in general, they like to they kind of fall into the Ponzi scheme a lot, like in this region. There is a report that at least $700 billion was like what is it called? Like the countries or the region is actually lost from the Ponzi scheme. So it's bad actually. But anyway, even though people are trading, they will, in the end, knows about cryptocurrency or own some of the Bitcoin to trade, right? So this is also what it's pushed all these countries because they know that their currency is weak. So if there is a Bitcoin or if there is other type of stable coin that spread around the country that can, it can make problems for their currency. So, and why the government and central banks want CBDC. It's because, of course, it can increase the control for citizen spending. They can control like whatever we can spend. They can program the money, and they can monitor the flow of money for quote unquote illicit purpose. So they can really monitor everything, and also possibly to curtail sanctions, because we already know what will happen with Ukraine and Russian war. Sanction can happen and can really hurt the people. So I guess, I think was Dominic was saying that the war is upon us. So yeah, I think also all these country leaders are afraid that this is going to happen in their country. So another thing that I would like to point out is because especially now there's a lot of Chinese debt, and then Chinese wants this country to pay in the digital yuan. So most likely what happened is that whatever people spend is also can be monitored by other countries, like in this case in China. And what is the current development for CBDC? So from the 11, from at least 10 countries in here, Brunei Darussalam is still undecided, but most of the other countries already, they are going to move forward with the CBDC. With, for example, the one that already established is in Thailand and Malaysia, but right now is for wholesale CBDC. So I want to explain a little bit about wholesale and retail. So wholesale means this is for cross-border payment, and retail, this is when it's going to be used by individual. And at the moment, the one that is happening is in Thailand, Malaysia is for wholesale. Thailand is also starting to do the retail, and then the rest is like a mix between wholesale and retail. But even though that, currently they are moving forward to CBDC, but there is still no standard whatsoever. Like countries trying to figuring out what is their best CBDC for them, and they have to also think about the effect on their law and their monetary policy. So the challenge are in CBDC is that one, it's about monetary policy. So for example, if they are using CBDC for cross-border payment, what happens if one country is overflooded with another currency? Like how they, because everything is going to happen really fast, and can, let's say, central banks figuring out how they can raise interest rate, or how much reserve that they have in their bank. This is something that they have to think about. Privacy, again, when it comes to cross-border payment, meaning that the countries need to share foreign citizen data to other countries. Will this be allowed? Can it affect the national security? Scalability, I think they also have the same problems as like in Bitcoin, like how they're going to scale. Can their system hold that amount of deposit, even using their distributed ledger? And also something very specific, which is the jurisdiction within Islamic banking, and maybe this is very important for Indonesia and Malaysia because there's a lot of Muslim population in here, and they're really focusing on Islamic finance. Can people really using CBDC that laid on with interest, using the Islamic finance methodology? So this is still under discussion, and this discussion and research will take a long time, right? So yes, CBDC is moving forward, but they also have their own challenges. That's what I want to say. So because of that, because we are talking about money race, so I'm in my mind, this is like an analogy between the story of rabbit and turtle when they're having a race. Bitcoin is the turtle, rabbit is the fiat system right now. They're running around having too much distraction. So if we are still moving forward, slowly by slowly, we can reach our goal, having a massive Bitcoin adoption in this region. And yeah, I mean, here's the alternative, I guess. I was talking about the challenge of CBDC. Obviously, let's say if we're talking about monetary policy, right now the only one that we can look for is El Salvador, the one who already accepted Bitcoin as the legal tender, but there will be question that needs to be answered for monetary policy. But at least in Bitcoin, we know for sure that there is a fixed monetary policy. We only have 21 million Bitcoin. There is a difficulty adjustment. A block by block. There's never fail. So it's a fixed monetary policy, unlike in fiat or unlike in CBDC. When it comes to privacy, also, it is much more private than. Of course, than fiat, and then in order to make it more private, like we can use, let's say, CoinJoin, scalability. We have Lightning Network, and it's already in the test run right now. So many, like everyone around the world are using Lightning Network to do payment, and I can see that this can be implemented in a country, like a larger, even region level, not only just like a country level, and with issues with Islamic banking, Bitcoin doesn't have usury, right? Like the problem with Islamic banking is that they don't want any usury. So with Bitcoin doesn't have any usury embedded in the network itself. It actually make it more halal than what they are currently using right now. Even though the Islamic banking system is trying to figuring out a different way to make it more halal, but in the end, right now, they are using a fiat system that is actually based on interest, that is based on usury. So, yeah, and we can see right now that the Southeast Asia low-income countries rank the highest for Bitcoin and crypto adoption. This is the data from Chain Analysis. From rank 1 until 30, the top 30 are actually in Southeast Asia. And this adoption comes from pragmatism, right? People in Southeast Asia, obviously, they just want to make more money. They see the potential in cryptocurrency, in Bitcoin. But of course, the mindset will be a bit different than in Nigeria or in Turkey or in Argentina, where their currency is falling. But the potential is there. And I make like a little bit of chart about which countries in Southeast Asia that is mostly friendly for Bitcoin investment. I can say that Vietnam, Indonesia, Philippines, Malaysia, Singapore, and Brunei, they're quite friendly, which means that even though most of these countries doesn't allow Bitcoin as legal tender, but they are allowing for investment, they're allowing for trading, mining, and then some tax also. In general, either they don't have a tax regulation or they set a really fixed or they treat the profit from trading as an income tax. Apart from Indonesia, that is already being ahead, and then they gave 0.1% tax for any sell order in trading. From this data, the one that is less friendly is Myanmar, because right now, as you know, that Myanmar is being occupied by the military, and then there is subset of pro-democracy group that using USDT or to raise funding to curtail the military, and that's why they are banning crypto, banning Bitcoin in general, because even if you caught doing trading, you can get into prison. So Myanmar probably less friendly, but the rest has a lot of potential in here. And yeah, this is the number of value that was received just last year, data from Chainalysis, it's between 100 to 150 billion, so there's a lot of money coming into this region in Bitcoin. So how can Bitcoin pull ahead against CBDC? Again, based on the analogy of the race between the turtle and also the rabbit, like if you move slowly, we probably can get to our goal. And something like in the story, you know, the rabbit have a lot of distractions, so the distraction can be financial crisis hit Southeast Asia, so then people have to choose another hard currency, and now people already heard about Bitcoin, and if they get more education about how Bitcoin can be their safe haven or hedge against inflation, people will go for it. Increase in control, surveillance, and freedom restriction from the Southeast Asia government. We see these trends already that I guess a part of being a smart cities or what I call 15-minute cities or something like that. Majority of this big city already install a lot of CCTV, and then they want to, if they implement CBDC with a lot of restriction, I'm sure people, again, will find a different way to transact that is more free for them. And also the rise of Bitcoin community and integrated Lightning payment system, I think is very important to make people use it daily, not only just use it as a way to make more money, make more fiat, but use it for a day-to-day payment system. So what happened in the region, there is Bitcoin Island in Philippines, from Pouch, yeah, we went to Boracay last year? And it was really interesting to see how quick people can adopt to new system, as if you make it really easy for them to use, and also really safe for them. As I know that both Bitcoin Island and also Bitcoin Beach in Vietnam, the default money that they will receive is in their national currency, and that makes people more, more trusted or more relaxed when receiving Bitcoin payment. And there is an opportunity for adoption because this area is a tourist hub. So the pitch that, let's say, what Pouch people do in Philippines is that if you have Bitcoin, then you can interact it with foreigner, because most foreigner, they cannot spend more money because they have to withdraw money in the ATM, and then that costs money, right? So it's very interesting to see how people really quickly adapt to this. And you have to, when it comes to Bitcoin Lightning, I think we have to adapt of what's going on in the market right now. And knowing the characteristic, people just don't want to get trouble with the authority. So we have to figuring out the meeting point while also promoting Bitcoin. And yeah, and then last, the opportunity that I see in here, when the CBDC is here, and the CBDC is adopted, I think for Bitcoin to be successful in Southeast Asia, it's through these three things, which is first, saving. So connecting and yeah, probably collaborating with existing digital payment system, something that they already use, like the QR code in Malaysia and Indonesia, or even the app in Philippines and Vietnam. And one thing that I found the altcoins or the shitcoins really, really successful is that they go to the grassroots level. I mean, of course, this is the bad side of them. They entice people saying that they can make money and then stole their money from people in the villages. But we can do the same thing through education and focusing on saving and giving access for them to do an investment, something that they probably never think about, you know? So grassroots level is still needed. And then the second is payment, to have Bitcoin as a medium for off-ramp and on-ramp. And again, connecting and collaborating with existing digital payment provider. how we can not inventing a new system, but already take what is there. And gaming, because yeah, in Philippines, there is a huge interest in Axie Infinity. People like to play game. People like to gamble, in essence, in Southeast Asia. So if you can incentivize some gaming through Lightning, and people can earn sats, and also save at the same time. I know someone who actually do this, and her mom is playing a mobile game through Thunder Games, and she earns a lot of Bitcoin and start learning about what is Bitcoin. So I think this is also another way to move forward. Okay, so the takeaway is that in Southeast Asia, the countries are very diverse, and we have to be patient. The adoption is there. You just need to direct them into less riskier action, like gambling, but more on the safer side, like saving. And just believe it, that people will find a way. People are very pragmatic, and I have a huge confidence to the Southeast Asian people that this area is going to be a huge Bitcoin adoption. And that's it from me. If there's any question, please go ahead.
Anybody Q&A? I mean, I always have a couple on hand here in case you guys don't have any hands up. Okay, here we go. One from the crowd.
Hey, dear. On the CBDCs, I mean, the way you presented the Southeast Asian CBDCs, almost cute. What about the freaking surveillance, tracking of payments, and then controlling where you can or cannot spend your fiat? Is that coming? Because you know how, you're right, Southeast Asia, I want to add one more characteristic to Southeast Asians. Passive, aggressive. And that's where I kind of think what they're doing with presenting the wholesale and retail CBDC is a little bit of a sideshow. So I don't know what you think about that, because almost cute, you know what I mean? But then I think about passive aggressive, I'm like, oh shit.
Well, yeah, I think, yeah, in general, like in the presentation, is that at the moment they are thinking about the wholesale, like how to make it like settlement between countries. But yes, the looming of surveillance and tracking of like how much you spend, or probably there's a possibility that you have time lock in your money, like you can only spend this money for this type of products. It's there, right? The thing is, the problem is that most of the retail CBDC right now, they are focusing towards the model in China. And what we see in China, they connect the CBDC with the social credit system. So this is where we are heading to. But again, like I said, I still have a confidence with Southeast Asian people. Once they got to this point where they got pushed too hard, they will run away. They will find another alternative. This is why in 1945, let's say in Indonesia, because I'm Indonesian, I know my history, when the government decided to print their money and force people to use the Indonesian ORI, which is the original Indonesian money, people say it in front of them, like, yeah, I'm going to accept ORI money. But what they did is they exchanged that money for Dutch gulden, for pound sterling, for something that is harder currency for them. So people in Southeast Asia is quite practical. So I know that it's bad. I hope that this surveillance happen, then it's going to push people and wake people up to move forward to the Bitcoin adoption.
Great question and answer. I have a question for you. So a lot of people in the crowd here probably don't know much about Islamic banking, right, and being halal. Could you kind of go into that? So obviously there's a massive, Islamic population around the world, and specifically here in Southeast Asia, with the largest, I think the second or largest Islamic population in the world in Indonesia. Can you walk us through a little bit more about what is Islamic banking exactly, and what it means to be halal, and then how is Bitcoin halal?
Okay, so in like the way traditional bank got their profit is through interest, right? Like through interest payment. But in Islamic banking, you cannot charge interest payment. So what they did is that they will, a bank will be like a merchant, if I can say. They will buy and sell products, and then the profit they can give this to the people, like as the let's say interest. But it's not people didn't pay the bank with the interest. They just changed the name into service fee. But again, the underlying system is actually based on fiat, and fiat is still based on debt. So it's somehow a bit wonky, if I can say.
Yeah, because I remember, like, if you trace back loans back to, like, it was very unchristian-like. So Christians at one point in time did not believe in usury either, and so if you look back at the first original loans, I think it was back in like Venice, for example, it was very unchristian-like to be able to borrow money and charge somebody interest, and then because the Christians wouldn't do it, and then this whole kind of banking system kind of was created with, I believe it was like and like the Shylocks and whatnot, and this other system. So it sounds like, it's still today, right, where the Christians obviously said, screw it, we're charging interest. Like, forget unchristian, like we're charging interest now. But it sounds like, in the Islamic community, it's still un-Islamic to charge interest. But maybe they hide it in a service fee as opposed to saying it's interest, because at the end of the day, they still need to make money or want to make money, right?
Yes, correct. It's something like that, and I guess also to add an addition for like what is considered to be halal or haram is that. Like in Islam, that every transaction needs to be transparent. You need to know what you are giving, you need to know what you are receiving. And if one party knows more than the other party, then this is considered to be unfair, and unfair means then transaction is haram. So in Bitcoin, it's pretty much the most transparent transaction ever, and it's close. When you give your fiat and you receive in Bitcoin, that's it, right? The transaction is closed. There's no such thing as, like maybe mortgage or interest in this sense. So that's the difference, I guess, with the halal or haram.
Perfect, thank you. We have time for one quick question, and then we'll get it. Then we'll take a 10-minute break for our next speaker, which is Roland from Albi, I believe.
Thank you. On a realistic hypothetical situation where the U.S. dollar collapses and everything becomes revalued, and the digital yuan is one of the top currencies, where do you see the direction of Southeast Asian countries going to adopt the digital yuan, or more on a Bitcoin standard, or another alternative?
That's a good question. I mean, this is just my point of view.
That's what I want. Yeah. Your honest point of view, please.
I think they will go towards the digital yuan just because of how close the region with the China loan at the moment, and also with the economy is kind of tied towards that. And but I also see that if the U.S. dollar collapse, because Chinese yuan is not as better as U.S. dollar. Like China print more than U.S. dollar at the moment, right?
Well, yeah, but they also produce more now when everything becomes revalued, right? And
yeah, but again, like I think in my point of view, of course they're probably going towards the China route, but there will be a subset of people who are gonna use Bitcoin, and we will see in here Like when Bitcoin is become a standard, I believe we will see a lot of city-states instead of just like a big nation, what we are currently have at the moment. So I don't know, the political will change, I guess.
Any countries that come to mind?
For what?
Southeast Asian countries that will maybe...
That will probably Vietnam and Malaysia, I don't know. I think this is the two places.
That's an interesting take. That's a very interesting take, Dia, in terms of saying, could a country break up into city-states? Ooh, I don't know. It'd be interesting. I know they're trying to work towards a world government, but could there be a possibility where countries revert back and maybe start subdividing into city-states based on maybe there's a region, a province, a state, a territory that says where we don't believe in the banking system and they break away and adopt Bitcoin? I don't know. That could be something. Something for another topic at another time, on another talk, at another conference. But thank you very much. And 8-minute break, and we'll be back here again with the next speaker.